Yo, what is going on, Cover One crew? Welcome back to the show. It is game day for us Bills Mafia supporters. Big one for us. But, I mean, it was a crazy week. Everyone thought it was going to be, dump fire contest. There was a lot of points that were put on the board. Hopefully you guys followed my advice on start sit and you got those dubs, because I did pretty well this week on the hit rate. But we're talking trending players for wide receivers. We did the running backs last week. Let's talk a little wide receiver time. So many wideouts putting up a lot of productivity at this point, and we got to know who's trending in the right direction as we enter the fantasy football postseason. We got 4 weeks left until the postseason does come for fantasy football. Let's start off with my guy, CeeDee Lamb, and these Dallas Cowboys are doing very well right now. Look, it came off a blowout victory versus those New York Giants. And ever since Richard Sherman called out a CeeDee Lamb, it's been absolutely insane, man. They went on the bye week, and since the bye week, Dak Prescott and these Dallas Cowboys have force-fed CeeDee Lamb on the regular. 44 targets these last 3 weeks, for CD. It's been absolutely phenomenal. He's been repaying us handsomely. Rank number 4 for a CeeDee Lamb. I believe I had him in my top 5 when we go back to the ranks of preseason ranks. It was just absolutely, I believe in CeeDee Lamb. Always have, always will. I think he's an absolute baller. 164 points. Rank number 4. We're talking his schedule. Very favorable schedule coming up for these Dallas Cowboys. They could literally ride with only seeing maybe a couple dropped contests. So on that point, based on how these Dallas Cowboys are utilizing CeeDee Lamb with the target share, force feeding him, and the upcoming schedule, absolutely glorious for the trend on the rise. 66.7 on the boom rate is pretty good, and that should totally increase. He did drop some boom rates early on in the season, but I foresee this changing in a very big way. CeeDee Lamb is going to be a trusted commodity moving forward. Tank Dell blows up on the scene. We were waiting for him early on, first 6 weeks. We saw some sprinkles. Now we're starting to understand what Tank Dell can do in this offense, thanks to my guy, C.J. Stroud, baby. Told y'all C.J. Stroud was legit going all the way back to the draft process, even going back previous seasons with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Tank Dell is uprising huge in this respect, man. 21 rank right now, 101 points. He's blown up the past 2 contests, seen a lot of target share come his way. Nico Collins out did help the cause for Tank Dell this past week versus the Bengals. Final 7 games don't look desperately, tragic for us, as there is a lot of good quality matchups for pass catchers coming their way. Houston could absolutely carve out themselves a spot in the real NFL playoffs, which is good news because they're constantly going to be fighting for work, and C.J. Stroud should be slinging the ball. 50% boom rate right now for a Tank Dell is looking good, and these last 7 games, as they continue to push, C.J. Stroud will continue to elevate everybody on this offense. This Houston team, I told y'all in the offseason, I love how they built this squad, man. They got so many weapons. Now the evolution of Noah Brown. You still got Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, Nico's there, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie. You got wide receivers galore, and we're not even talking about a Dalton Schultz. So there is going to be potential where we do have some stinker games for a Tank Dell because there's so many mouths to feed. But I believe he's done more than enough to showcase his talents that he's going to be a top priority in this offense as a pass catcher. Jaylen Waddle time. Miami Dolphins are coming off the bye week. Okay, and it's been a very drastically brutal season for Jaylen Waddle owners. I am a Jaylen Waddle owner myself, and it has not been fun, man. Rank number 30, 91 points, thanks to all the balls that are going towards a Tyreek Hill, and he's repaying everybody Tyreek Hill is at the detriment of a Jaylen Waddle. Waddle has dealt with injuries all season long, missed a contest here and there, and it's not good. 50% boom rate, and this upcoming schedule does not look overly favorable. Yes, while the Raiders are good versus stat-wise, they are beatable. You can pass on them at times depending on the offense, and I think Miami's offense is good enough to exploit the Raiders. But, I mean, the Jets twice, you got Dallas and Baltimore. This does not bode well for high-end point productivity from a Jaylen Waddle right now. So while the Miami Dolphins offense would still be trending in the right direction on the ups, the schedule definitely is on the low, and Jaylen Waddle's usage is definitely on the low. He will end up, outside of any Tyreek Hill injury, Waddle's going to end up being anywhere from a low-end wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 for us as the season does come to conclusion. So we can still play him because he still has crazy ability. They just got to get him more involved. The target share's got to be there, and Waddle's definitely got to stay healthy. So I'm not out on Jaylen Waddle, but his trend, based on circumstance, is not very favorable at this point. And, I mean, we could struggle in certain contests with him as we move forward in these last 7 contests. Scary Terry McLaurin, Washington Commanders, the Commies, playing extremely well. Sam Howell's the league's leading passer right now in yardage. And I told y'all about Sam Howell as well, man. When I evaluate talent, it's not just for football, but also for your fantasy football team. So this is why I believe real football obviously correlates. I'm not strictly on the analytics. You got to watch the games. You got to understand the players. This is what I do. Terry McLaurin, man, he is one of my favorite wide receivers in this league, but the way this offense is moving right now under Eric Bieniemy, Sam Howell's spreading the ball to everybody. I believe Sam had like 10 different wide receivers and running backs catch a pass this past week, and that does bring down the top end value of these wide receivers. Terry is at 25.97 points, so I mean, it's not a bad season. In 10 games, it's not great. We should have seen at least Terry be in the top 18 at this point, and it's just not happening. We're even seeing, Jahan Dotson being the afterthought in this offense because of how they spread the ball around to everyone, and they're extremely balanced offensively. Haven't translated in victories yet as a team, but this team is moving in the right direction with a Sam Howell. He is that guy. Don't get it twisted. 50% on the boom rate for Scary Terry, and that's going to be up and down. I think we're going to hover around the same mark as we continue to move past these next 7 games. He may get his matchups, the LA Rams especially, while they are in a good matchup for defenses to block wide receivers, I still think they're beatable at times as well. 49ers on week 17, their defense will also be uplifting when we get closer to the playoffs for the real NFL. So, I mean, it's very difficult to trust Terry on the top end levels, but he should at least give you better than what he did last week of that 5-6 points happy BR. We should see anywhere from 8 to 12 every given week, but it's gonna be a struggle for a Terry, so that's why I'm not really overly favorable, but I'm not out on him either. Chris Olave, CO2, my guy. They're going on the bye week this week, and it was okay. All it took was Jameis Winston to get back on the field to force feed Chris Olave. He had, 3 quarters with 0 points. Jameis Winston comes in the game and then absolutely blows up with Chris Olave, scores a touchdown, almost 100 yards, rank 15 for my guy Olave, CO2, and the schedule is very favorable for these Saints. And then, okay, so how are we going to evaluate the Saints moving forward? We know what Jameis Winston is. He loves to throw his interceptions, but he's a gunslinger, man. He's going to sling that ball for touchdowns. So his stat line is perfect. We know what Jameis is, okay? 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 200 yards plus. This is what Jameis will give this offense. He will continue to try, which will absolutely uplift a Chris Olave. You got to love that in 10 games. Rank 15 with the sputtering passing upside of a Derek Carr with a Taysom Hill. You got to understand, 15 is absolutely gorgeous for Chris Olave right now, and the schedule is on the ups. There are going to be some very important contests here, but very beatable teams for this New Orleans Saints offense. And when they're playing better at home than they are on the road, but at this point, they're going to go on the bye, figure some things out, and I think Chris Olave can be trusted down the stretch. 60% boom rate right now, and that's pretty impressive given the fact that Derek Carr has not been great for us throwing consistently to the wide receivers. Calvin Ridley, Jacksonville Jaguars, this one's a problem, okay? I admit I was high on Ridley coming into this season, in the offseason, preseason. Totally believed. I bought it, okay? And I'm still in on the fact that Calvin Ridley is a very sound, quality wide receiver. Just something ain't right with Trevor Lawrence and this offense right now. Rank 42, 77 points in 9 games is not gonna cut it for a Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk still, I told y'all too as well, when it comes down to the fact of chemistry building, we know Christian Kirk has all the chemistry with a Trevor Lawrence, and this comes to the detriment of a Calvin Ridley. But we are already in, week 11? You thought they would have figured this out by now, and they have not, so this does not bode well for the final 7 games of the regular season. And when you see the teams are going up against all very much quality defenses that will give the Jags a run for their money, only 44.4% on the boom rate for Calvin Ridley. It's not horrible, but at this point, you wanted to see over 50, 60% boom consistency rate, because that means he's only booming in small little subsets of contests and then leaving you with nothing later on. It's not good, man. And you see all this red here. Houston, Cincy, Cleveland, Baltimore, even Carolina. They still play good defense. So, I mean, it might be tough sledding for Calvin Ridley to really be in that top 30 rank, man. He could sit here in the 40s, no kidding. He needs a couple good contests, but at this point, it's very difficult to trust him being a top 25 wide receiver. Deebo Samuel, he comes back from the injuries. 49ers absolutely steamroll those Jags. That was one of the easier bets on the spread for me. It was only -3 for the 49ers, and I took it all the way to the bank, cashed my dollar bills. 7 games for Deebo, and we understand how this offense does work. They are also very extremely balanced. CMC is the bread and butter. Ayuk does take a lot of targets, but now Deebo's back. Kyle Shanahan made an avid effort to give him the ball, and he repaid everybody with a touchdown score this past week. This should absolutely continue, but how this offense is, similarly to how Washington is, they spread the ball around to all of their wide receivers and tight ends and running backs to get them involved in the game. Deebo right now, 75 points on 7 games played. It's not terrible, 46 rank. He just hasn't been that great explosive player that we wanted to see, and that just comes with the territory of him not getting enough rushing carries because of a Christian McCaffrey. As we do get closer to the final 7 games of the season, we could absolutely see an influx of rushing upside for Deebo because they're trying to save CMC for the playoffs and not overwork him. That is an absolute definite possibility, but when you look at the schedule, all these defenses struggle versus wide receivers. It is a very big positive. Excuse me, and when Trent Williams is back on the field, we have seen what Brock Purdy can do. He's got time to throw, he's accurate, he's decisive, he's confident, and this should only continue barring any health for all of these players like a Deebo and a Purdy. I think this Deebo Samuel could be almost a league winner for us the way that this is shaping up. 57.1 on the boom consistency. You got to love Deebo at this point. Puka Nacua. I mean, this is the last one I got on this evaluation. I like him, man. I mean, he's been absolutely tremendous for us this season. Ranked number 10, even with the stumble the past several weeks without, with an injured Matthew Stafford and Rippon taking over the past week before they went into the bye. Puka still ranks as the 10th ranked wide receiver in 9 games. You can't hate that whatsoever, but when you look on the flip side, his consistency has been 55.6% at this point because the last several games have dropped him down from that high upside, high-level play that we're looking for. Still no news on if it's a Matthew Stafford going to be on IR. They're still kind of waiting and seeing. They signed themselves a Carson Wentz. They're coming off the bye week. How is this going to look for Puka? And you do got some very difficult contests in the mix with some decent ones. So right now, until we understand what Matthew Stafford is, rest of season capabilities are going to be, it definitely is a fear of mine to preach up a Puka to say he's going to take over where he left off. Because we'll see with Carson Wentz. Am I as, down on Carson Wentz as everyone else? No, because we've seen Carson support offenses. Yes, it didn't look good when he was playing last with the Colts, but this is Sean McVay. Maybe we can see Sean McVay get the best out of a Carson Wentz and lift up all these wide receivers. So while the schedule, I'm going to say, is kind of on the lows for the Rams, and this wide receiver core, I'm kind of still saying it's on the mid-level for me. Mid-level trend for Puka, mid-level trend for this offense until we see what Carson Wentz does on the field. Yes, Carson has shown pretty bad play these past several years, but it's not completely out of the question that Puka could at least still give us a decent floor of that 10 to 15 points when he is on the field, because PPR upside definitely trumps most everything. But there you have it. That is some wide receiver time for trending players as we enter week 11, and we got to get those dubs, man. We only got a few weeks left until the fantasy football playoffs. It's never over, man. 4 wins, 3 wins. You're still alive with 4 weeks to go. Never give up hope on your fantasy team. Make some trades if you have to. Solicit my advice. I could definitely help you out if you throw it in the comments, but nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments like I'm saying, and we'll see you next time. I am out.